Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I am delighted to be joined by Jim, or some call him the Oracle. I just call him Uncle Jim. Jim, you've been playing walking football over the last wee while. How's it gone? Are you back to full fitness?
I'm back. I'm back, baby. Yes, I'm back. Yeah, it's good. Again, people kind of talk down to it like your good self, but once you get to 50, son, I guarantee you'll be pulling the boots on again and getting stuck right in there. Competitions all over the place, cups, leagues. From a social point of view, it's a fantastic thing. You meet lots of new people. Playing last night, 10 aside, Tory Glen, AstroTurf pitch, referee, bibs, the whole thing. Brilliant, brilliant.
By the way, I do not look upon it with disdain. I've got to say that. And the reason I bring it up, Jim, is because it's so important. It really is so important to keep the legs moving. And, you know, you take it for granted when you're a young spud, but you get to my age and you think to yourself, it's not as easy as it used to be. So I've got
also, there's something called dementia football, as you know, and I think I sent you something last week. It's kind of the wee kind of surprise nuggets you get now and again as you're dealing with people who've got dementia, obviously, which is obviously a terrible, terrible illness. But they come along for a kickabout, which is great. And a lot of the time, they just tell you stories, which are just stories. But sometimes they tell you the truth. And last Wednesday, when a guy came along, said he played for Chelsea. So you get that from time to time. I played for Celtic. I was a referee at the cup final. And then you Google it and you find it. I'm just talking rubbish, obviously. But this guy actually played for Chelsea as a 17-year-old. Guy called Peter McMullen, who's only ever game for Chelsea. He's one of Chelsea's youngest ever players. He came up and played for Clydebank, played junior after that. But the team he played for, he played against Southampton in 1967 and they got gubbed 6-2 at Stamford Bridge, which is unusual at the best of times. But Osgood was in, for older listeners, sorry, guys like Osgood were in the team, McCready was in the team, Benetti was in goals, Charlie Cook was playing, blah, 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 blah. And this guy comes along to dementia football and I played for Chelsea. Did you? And then the following week you say, you did play for Chelsea, sorry. And you start to asking questions about Peter Benetti and Bobby Tambling and Charlie Cook. And Tommy Dock was the manager and blah, 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 blah. Again, I'll do my kind of advert for dementia football. If you're in the south side of Glasgow and you've got somebody in your family who's got dementia and they fancy a wee kickabout, because they can have a wee kickabout, Tory Glen, Wednesday mornings, 10 until 12. So we have a kickabout and we have some football drills and we have a game. And then afterwards, we have a cup of tea and we get some of the old football cards out, some old programmes out, blah, 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 blah. So there's my wee plug for dementia football on a Wednesday morning.
I think it's fantastic. I really do, Jim. Obviously, a couple of weeks back, we heard about another ex-Celtic player who has been diagnosed with early onset dementia. It's Andy Payton. Yep. I remember Andy well, early 90s. He came up and played for the Acsom Celtic select team against St Roch's for the centenary. And we're going to hear more and more of these cases, Jim.
He's only 57 as well. Yeah, he's only 57.
It's horrendous.
It's horrendous.
It is horrendous, Jim, because, as I say, with age comes a bit of reflection, meant to be a bit of maturity. You're meant to become a wee bit more wise and chilled out and soulful and all that kind of stuff. But also, you look at your age. I remember a few years ago you saying to me that you were watching a box set and you sounded so morbid. You goes, I'm watching a box set. And, you know, it's probably the last time I'll get a chance to watch that. And I'm
I didn't say the last time I'll get a chance. I said, I'm deciding to watch this. No. I said, no. I said that I will not watch this again. That's it. That's no morbid. That's just age appropriate. That says, well, kind of what you don't want to do. Today's lesson before we even start the Celtic stuff is don't waste your time on rubbish.
Embrace life.
Do absolutely. Things because, you know, time goes pretty quickly. So don't waste your time doing stuff and don't. I never understand people watching things for a second time. I get listening to music all the time, the same songs time and time again. I don't really get watching something for the second time if you've seen it before, in case you know what's going to happen, unless it's an absolute classic type of thing. But never watch anything twice. But yeah, that's what I kind of decide to do now that I've got various box sets. I'm actually watching Soap. For those over the age of 50 would remember Soap, late 1970s. Bizarre comedy. Anyway, I'm on Soap just now. So.
I've never heard of it. I'll have a look at it. For anybody,
Billy Crystal's in it. It was his first. It was Billy Crystal's first big break.
Right.
He plays. Google it, son. Google it.
Google it, son. Yes, that's a famous saying in Fife. Google it, hen. Chris McElwain might be able to join us. What do you think of AI, Jim?
I'm starting to use it now. I'd like to get into it. I find it fascinating. I find all technology fascinating. I find that for the younger generation, the potential to do so much is there. I mean, back in the day, and you'll be still back in the day kind of guy, you had to go to libraries and stuff like that to get information. So if you're writing a play now to get information quickly, it's just hit of a button. To watch a video about a game, I'm writing my next play just now, my next Celtic play just now, and you'll click of a button, you've got information which in 30 years ago you would never know. Now, even things like today, talking on the podcast today, whereby you're thinking, who are we playing tomorrow? It's St Mirren. Where are they in the league? Can they still qualify for Europe? Click. AI will tell you the story. Because I didn't know, expert pundit here, I wasn't sure about the European qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked AI, so how does it work, AI? And basically, 5th place will get it if when other people qualify through the Scottish Cup. So it's a big game for them tomorrow, taking it back to football. It's a big so there's a, I mean, obviously you can go to Google, but AI is a bit more kind of interactive, user-friendly, whereby it's almost like you're talking to somebody. So can St Mirren qualify for Europe tomorrow, AI? Of course they can, because if Dundee to lose and it gets the answer. There are obviously parts of it that are a bit sinister that's going to take over the world. But for now, I'd like to get into it to get some ideas, and a starter for 10, I would call it, where you've got some ideas to do something, and maybe you're not very good at something. I'm not musical, but at the back of my head, I'd like to write a musical sometimes, so I couldn't actually start doing that. So maybe AI can give me a wee kind of starter for 10. And I'm looking for this kind of musical genre. Can it sound a bit like this? What are the chords for that? How would that kind of work? And take that and do something with it. I don't think using AI to do everything is a good idea, but I think as a kind of starter for 10, a kind of wee aid, it's good. And obviously it's extremely powerful. But yeah, I'd like to know more about it, and I'm going to kind of start maybe learning a wee bit more about it. That's where I'm just now.
I agree with you. It's a tool. It's not the be-all and end-all. It needs to be used as a tool, and I think the collaboration with creative people should make sure that it works well. Arnie Engels is once again on the headline today on the tagline. People, all this way down the line with just 2 games to go, with Celtic vying for a treble and Arnie Engels being a massive part of that, are still saying they're not convinced by Arnie Engels. And I'm putting it out there, and I'm saying that there is no question whatsoever, Jim, that a player like Engels, at his age, who has achieved prior to coming to Celtic what he had achieved, and who has achieved what he has done since he came to the football club, is worth the money we paid. And I think people need to get over that, Jim. I really do. I mean, people, what price do you put on a performance or on a goal, etc., etc.? What I would say is, if he was the player that left this summer, would we lose money on him? The answer to that is no. He's worth the money.
Last time I quoted JCJ, so I'll do that again. It's not about the price tag. Thank you and good night. For younger listeners, JCJ is a singer. Younger listeners. No, I think it's an interesting question. Did we need Arnie Engels to win the league? No, we didn't. You know, we did get by with Luke McCowan or Bernardo. I think Bernardo's great as well. It'd be good to see Bernardo get running the team. In terms of Engels, I thought when he got capped for Belgium, I would agree with you there that if we sold him the next day, if we got our money back, no bother. But he's kind of fallen out of favour a little bit with Belgium. I think if we're going to sell him, he has to be in around the Belgian squad to get the money back, I think. I think the price tag is what's influencing everyone. If he was signed for £3 million, people would be raving about him. Brilliant signing. 11, you're expecting Maradona, you know, and he's not Maradona. So I think the price tag is basically what's kind of skewing people's views. I think Luke McCowan's been great this season. I think Bernardo, unfortunately, injured most of the season. But when he plays, he's great. You notice him. He's good. And I think because of the price tag, your expectation for Engels is a bit more. And I can understand why people are saying, why do we pay all that money? Because in actual fact, we paid all the money because we had the money. You know, if we didn't have that kind of money, we wouldn't went into debt, I think, to spend £11 million. The same with Ida as well. We wouldn't have spent that kind of money. We'd have spent the money we had. You know, if we could only have afforded £7 million at the time, we'd have tried to buy him for £7 million. We wouldn't have went above that. And I think we found ourselves in the fortuitous position of having all this money, tens of millions of pounds kicking about. Then we could push the boat out a little bit. And he is one for the future. He's still a young guy, absolutely. And he's had a really good season. The debate, I think, is around about the price tag.
You know, talking about the money, and I know you're a figures man, £36 million, if you look at Matt O'Reilly and Kyogo, was brought into the football club. £36 million was then put back out on Jota, Engels, Ida, Trusty. And I know we actually brought in more. We brought in money for the likes of Mikey Johnston, Boston Lowell, Alexandro Bernabe. But the players that we brought in, the 4 guys that I've mentioned there, do you see us doing that again, Jim? Because is that only going to happen if we sell the 2 big names as we did this season? This is the big thing for me going into the summer. Rio Tati, we'll get to Rio. His move, if there was one in the offing, might have been scuppered depending on the severity of that injury. You're then looking at Maeda. Don't sell him. Don't sell him. The other guy being Kuhn. I actually think it's a bit premature for the player and the club, actually, for Nicholas Kuhn to leave. So to try and keep the team together. Now, Brendan Rodgers spoke about this before the game against Aberdeen. He said sometimes that's out of your control. So he's quite philosophical about it. Going into the summer, we might lose 1 or 2 players, Jim. But if we don't, do we still spend that money? That's the big question. Do we still have the ambition to go out over and above Kieran Tierney and bring in 3 expensive players?
I think history tells you unless you sell players, they don't sign players. That's just the way our board are, I think. And you spend the next hour talking about the board and money and how risk averse that they are. And it's been quite annoying this last maybe few weeks or so where they bumped the season ticket prices up. They've got tens of millions of pounds in that bank, but yet now bump them up again. Don't keep them the same. Or even just knock off a tenner, bump them up. We've got this Newcastle friendly coming up. You would think, we'll bung out on the season ticket. No, give us £25 of your money. So that's their attitude towards things, and they're very risk averse. So unless we're selling players, I don't think we're going to be buying big. And also, if you assess the 3 players that the manager bought, they weren't all stick on first team starters. And I think, to play devil's advocate in this one, if you're the board and you want to spend big money, these guys should be straight in the team. And there's a wee phase where, I can't remember when it was, maybe October, November, I think all 3 were on the bench at the same time. I think if you're the manager, that's not a great look. I've spent, as you said, the guts of 36 million, probably was, and the 3 are on the bench. If you're going to spend big money, they need to be first starters, I think. And I think that's been one of the reasons why maybe Anthony Engels has got as many starts as he's had over other players. I'm not saying he's had a bad season, as I said a minute ago, but if you've paid that kind of money and you've got a choice between him and Luke McCowan, you're going to go for Anthony Engels. So I just feel because of how our board act, they're not going to give him that kind of money, and that may have an implication further down the line where the manager stays or not. But I think, again, if you put devil's advocate, where the players we bought worth the money that we bought, you can make an argument for saying if they're not first team starters, then they're not. So, long-winded answer to your question. I think if we sell, and I think we will sell, and again, this isn't the 80s. This isn't Roy Aitken and Peter Grant world whereby you'd be surprised, devastated, etc. if they left. These are young guys who want to get on. It's a short career. If you're Dyson Maeda, you're as hot as you're ever going to be. You're at the top of the potential transfer fee as far as the club's concerned. I said this a couple of seasons ago about Abada. When Abada had a really good first season, I thought he's not going to be that good again. If you're going to sell him, again, playing devil's advocate, now's the time to sell him because he'll start to be not as good as that. And obviously, the whole political situation came and that kind of scuppered that anyway. But we won't get as much for Dyson Maeda next season. This time next, if we try and sell him. So from a club's point of view, he's at the top of the range. From Maeda's point of view, he's hot. Everyone's seen it in the Champions League. He's the top scorer in Scotland. He's winning Players of the Year. If I'm Maeda, I've got no great attachment to Scotland. So, and I've got a young family and it's a short career. I don't want to leave. Of course I want to leave. So don't get too attached because it's not Roy Aitken, it's Dyson Maeda. And we love him and we've got a great song about him and all that kind of stuff. But this is football in the modern world. And as I've said a lot of times in the podcast over the last few years, I still love football, but I hate what football has become because there's an acceptance that the chances are our best player this season, we might lose him in the summer. Okay, we'll lose the money for him, but we might lose Kuhn as well. Our best 2 players this season, we could potentially use them. That's unthinkable 40 years ago. Totally unthinkable. But now it is. And you have to go with the flow. That's where we are. So don't get too attached. Love them while they're here. Make up songs about them when they're here, but don't expect them to be here for a long time because it ain't going to happen. And that's what was unusual about Larsson, I think. And that's why we love Larsson so much. Apart from being our last world-class player, that the fact he stayed for 7 years was just amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously, today's the anniversary of his last game, isn't it? Saw that in X this morning.
Perfect
the last competitive
timing.
game.
Perfect timing.
The United game.
Just ask AI. Just ask AI. They'll tell you. That's great timing because tonight on This Is Acsom, Kevin Graham and Andy Rafferty join me to talk about the Celtic Cross Collective. And it's a very interesting tale because obviously through his poetry, Kev decided to write the best book ever written in poetry. And is that what you would call it? In poetry?
Poetic form.
In poetic form. See, I know I was asking a man with higher intellect than I. About Henrik Larsson, and it came out, and he actually name checks you in an interview tonight. So you need to tune in, Jim.
That's such a crowded market, that.
It is. I know, he did really well. He did really well. Such a crowded market. And our ambition was to get Henrik Larsson a copy of this book, and so far we have failed in that aim. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So beyond that, beyond the book of poetry about Henrik, 50 poems about Henrik Larsson, Kev then started recording songs inspired by this book, and he released a Henrik Larsson EP. It's excellent. I've got to say, it's actually excellent. It might not be everybody's cup of tea. Music is all about opinions. But anyway, he's coming on tonight, him and Andy, to talk about the great Henrik Larsson, and we spoke about that very subject, Jim, that you mentioned, and the fact that he stayed around, because I believe that at some point or for a period of time when he was at Celtic, he was world class. Henrik Larsson, world class in a Celtic jersey, and we're not going to see that too often. We're going to see potential. I think we've seen potential with Virgil van Dijk. He leaves the football club to win European Cups. That's just the way it is now. So, yeah, that's the reason I asked the question. And I ask it of you because I know that you're a man who looks at the figures and you're quite realistic when it comes down to it. You remove the emotion before you answer the question. And that's my concern going into the summer. It's almost like we can have nice, new, shiny things, but you need to sell some of the new, brilliant, shiny things you've already got. And I don't like that because I don't think we're going to be progressing at the rate we would like, or maybe even the rate that Brendan Rodgers would like, Jim. Do you think it gets to the point where there's an ambition that the fan base has and there's an ambition that the board has and they don't correlate?
100%. I think we are where we are on the food chain. I have to accept the fact that we are where we are. And we do our best to find these nuggets. And Ange was phenomenal at that. And he's found Kilgan, and he found Maida, and he found Hattati, and he found Matt O'Reilly. And we've turned them into, like, you know, players that we can sell for tens of millions of pounds, which is amazing when you think about it. But it's about trying to find good players, trying to keep them for 2 or 3 years, trying to build a team around them, and then trying to have the next person to come in and slot in for a bit of continuity. My concern is we become complacent with the success that we've had, because I feared the likes of Alan Morrison and Kevin Graham as well, talking about what goes on off the field, and that we're not, whatever you want to call it, best in class, world class, whatever. And I think the on-field success is masking a lot of that stuff. And I don't like it when, I mean, we talked about money a second ago. I don't like the mentality of someone that says, we've got tens of millions of pounds in the bank. Why have we that? Because of those 60,000 fans that are coming every 2 weeks. Let's bump up season ticket prices then. Not knock 10 quid off it. We don't care. Bump up season ticket prices. We've got a meaningless friendly against Newcastle United. Let's charge them for that. Let's just charge them for that. I don't like that. And I think, to me, that's completely out of touch. A friendly game should be in for nothing if you're a season ticket holder. And it should be a £5 if you don't have a season ticket to get people along. It's a glorified training session, but yet you're charging people money. I'll get back to my kind of favourite bugbear is I can't see the big screen. And I know that might sound the most, minor thing. And the people around about me in the sections I'm in, can't you see the big screen?
No.
Now, before COVID, in the pillars, there was a monitor in all the pillars, so you can see what's happening. You can't see, obviously, not everyone can see the big screen, but so you do something to compensate for that. That's been 5 years ago, and they've done nothing. So they don't really care, basically. And if I give up my season ticket, well, there's thousands on a waiting list, only too happy to take that. And another thing I don't like is how, is it kind of rant time? Sorry, what's the time?
Well, John
minutes.
Hughes was on holiday this week, so you've actually a space for an extra rant. If you want to have one in the first half,
I'll do like a Yogi special, because we are, whatever metric you want to use, we are the biggest club in the country, certainly the richest club in the country. So we should be the most influential club in the country. And I don't mean that to influence things for the good of Celtic. I mean to influence things for the good of the game in Scotland. That's what we should be doing. And that's what Michael Nicholson, if he's still there, I don't know if Michael's still, maybe I've missed a memo, but you could, that's what we should be doing. We should be up front of everything that's happening. Again, I love football, hate what it's become. So you look at the Dundee United game the other week, and they're charging 40, whatever it was, a ticket. So we point the finger at Dundee United and we say, bad, they're bad. But then you peel that back a wee bit and you say, well, what gave them the opportunity to charge 40 quid? Because it was a title-winning game, potentially. Why was that a title-winning game? Because Sky decided that was going to be the game. Who let Sky decide? Well, we have this thing called a split, where when there's only 5 games to go, a bunch of men, I'm assuming it's men, get together and decide who's going to play who and where they're going to play. Imagine that in England. Imagine the Premiership. Imagine Man City getting told you're going to Anfield for the 3rd time. There'd be chaos. And
Tail wagging the dog, Jim. That's what it is.
We have this, well, again, if you keep going back the way, why do we have this split? Because it's the SPFL. Who are the SPFL? They're the clubs. Who are the clubs? Well, Celtic's one of these clubs. And they're the biggest club. And they're the most influential club. Another week, there was talk about league reconstruction. We need league reconstruction. Because what we've got is tired and it's boring. We play each other playing Aberdeen for the 6th time next week. We play teams 4 times a season.
Yeah.
It's madness. We play some teams 3 times at home. It is total and utter mad. So what are Celtic doing about that? Never mind pointing the finger at Dundee United for selling £42 tickets. What are we doing as a club to change that? Are we getting together with our equivalent at Ibrox and Easter Road and saying, look, guys, this is madness. Talk to the fans. Talk to the 60,000 that are coming to Celtic Park every 2 weeks. The 50,000 that are going to Ibrox every second week. The 16,000 that are going to Tynecastle. Talk to these guys. Right? We need change. Bin the Sky contract. Number one, bin that. Because what I noticed was usually, I've got Sky. Obviously, need Sky to watch away games. And usually, every Friday, you'll get an email from Sky, the big sports weekend. And in the Glasgow Derby weekend, it wasn't mentioned. They didn't mention the Glasgow Derby. Bournemouth against Brentford, or whatever it was, or the Championship, and it's, Milton Keynes this, or whatever it was, it didn't mention the Glasgow Derby at all. So for me, bin Sky, form our own TV contract, get into bed with Amazon or somebody.
Yeah.
Get games at 3 o'clock all the time. Every game on pay-per-view, Wednesday nights, 7:30. I know I'm old guy having a rant here about the old days, but when we had an 18-team league, okay, maybe there's a lot of meaningless games. You had a chance to blood younger players. You only played teams twice a season. A Celtic Rangers game at Celtic Park was huge. It was unique. It was a once-a-season game. Now it's twice a season. So what game we did was the first, it meant something. You're a big Dunfermline fan. 18-team league. Get Dunfermline into the league as well. Only play 2 Glasgow derbies a season. Oh, you can't do that. Why can't you? We've got Champions League games to play. Why are we playing League Cup games? So, there's tons of things. My question is, what are Celtic doing about this? Because I'm not bothered about other clubs. We're the biggest club. We're the most influential club. And we're not getting these teams around the table. And it's easy to blame Neil Doncaster. He works for us, not Celtic, but he works for the clubs.
Yep.
So we decide what we do. And it's tired to play the same team for. The players don't like it either. They need something that's a bit fresher. We need more ideas. We need imagination. We need something, I think. And things like, and whatever I say, there'll be tons of flaws in it. Whatever. But you need to jazz things up. I'll tell you what, if this 49ers thing happens, right? Yes, we'll get an injection of cash. It won't be the silly money they think it's going to be. But what they will get is an organisation who are in charge of a large sports franchise in the States. They'll have lots of off-field ideas. They will leave us for dead off the field with all the initiatives that they'll come in. And we'll be shown up, I think, for what we are, that we do. The thing about that you can't resell your ticket if you can't make the game, we still don't do that.
Shambles.
possible explanation can you have for not doing that? The fan would make a wee bit of money, the club would make it a wee bit of money, and somebody who normally doesn't get a chance to go and watch Celtic gets to go and watch Celtic. We still do not do that. And there's a wee period over the Christmas, New Year period, we seem to be playing at Celtic Park every few games, and there was thousands of empty seats, and it was freezing, and people are paying for that through their season ticket because they don't. For me, they both don't really care. They really don't, and I don't know what the affiliation are doing about that, or the association, or the investors club, or the fans forum, or the whatever. I don't know, because I don't see it. Maybe they are doing lots of stuff, and I don't really know. But the evidence to me is I don't see any changes. I get an email virtually every day from Celtic. Women's team, new strips, kids academies, da-di-da-di-da, buy your Newcastle ticket. I don't see any innovation. I don't see any imagination. I don't see anything at all. But that's all masked because we'll hopefully get another treble on the table and X number of trebles, and we're selling out and all that. And to me, and I know we're on the verge, of a title party and hopefully a treble. So what's this old guy moaning about? I'm not moaning. I'm just saying there's a lot of things we need to do better, because when the day comes when we do lose this league at some point in time, all these things will come to the surface, and we'll say, why didn't we do that? And why didn't we do that? And one of my favourite phrases I always used was, how come we just became so smart? If there's things that we can do, why aren't we doing it? The big screen, I'm going on about that. That's a simple fix. That would please ordinary punters who can't see the big screen, can't hear the PA. There's a delay in the game because some VAR thing's happening apparently. We don't know what's happening because we can't see what's happening. But do you care about that? No, you really don't care about that, because if you did care, you would spend tens, 20, 30 grand or whatever, buying a lot of kind of monitors and sticking them all up, because we appreciate what you do for us. A commercial company wouldn't last 2 minutes if they treated customers, but they think we're customers and we think we're fans. We're not going to suddenly go and watch another team. That's not how it works. So they know we're a captive audience, and that's how we're treated. And we have to be treated better than we're treated. I know there's a fans liaison, supporters liaison guy. I don't know what he does. Is he a kind of logistical kind of person? Does he take any of this kind of stuff on board? We should have half a dozen people like that.
Absolutely.
Kicking about. There's this title party. I'd like to think that the club are hiring a lot of liaison people to give out the Gallagate to make sure things are kind of okay. That's a whole different debate. That's a different rant possibly coming. But we need to be not reactive to things. We need to be in top of things all the time. Rant over, whatever that was.
No, that was a very welcome. Is it a rant, or were you just hitting the nail on the head? Because I've seen somebody coming in saying that that's exactly what you were doing, hitting the nail on the head. Tom Merrick, a great rant. There you go. And that's only the first one, Tom. Stick around for part 2 in the second half. I think a season ticket holder now, Jim, again, I was on a different podcast last night off the underside, quite a new emerging podcast, and I was talking about the changes since I started going to watch Celtic. And I talk about when Fergus comes in and he has this vision because he has a knowledge of other sports elsewhere in the world, and he doesn't want to run a business where he doesn't know how many people are coming through the turnstile. So he says we need to start basing our plans on season ticket sales. And you know the figures better than I said it was approximately between 6,000 and 8,000 we had pre-Fergus. Is that right?
Yeah. There was a time when, under the old board, and then people obviously laugh at this at the time, they didn't want season tickets. It was annoying for them. And there was a point in time, you had to go up to the chairman's office and be vetted to buy a season ticket. Don't know if you're the right type of a season ticket. Because what you do need, as you said, and Fergus explained to people, you need guaranteed income, because what tend to happen, and obviously having just finished a play in the history a few weeks ago, was during that season, during those barren seasons, once you get to January and the league's lost effectively, then the crowds tail off.
Yep.
So you have the enthusiasm of any new season where you're getting not big crowds by today's standards. You may be getting 30, 40,000 in August and September. By the time you get to January and February, they're down to 20,000, 25,000 or so. So it's a double-edged sword. Not only are you unsuccessful, you're starting to, and you actually come a point where is what happened in 1994, is you get to a point where, actual fact, you're going to lose money unless you get a certain amount come through turnstiles. You're going to lose money that week. Never mind all the other stuff you have to spend money on things. You're going to lose money under your normal trading. So season tickets guarantees you money. And there should be lots of benefits for a season ticket. If I'm a season ticket holder, which I am, I should get someone off the merchandise. I should get someone off everything, basically, Celtic TV, whatever. I don't mind those emails then to say, hi, season ticket holder, we're giving you 10% off the new home top or 10% or 2%, whatever. Send us something that says, I appreciate you, season ticket holder. You're not just a money cow to us. We appreciate you coming through the gates, and therefore, here's a wee thank you to you. There's the Newcastle game for nothing. It's a meaningless game. I don't have a Champions League playoff game, please. No, you're not getting that. All right, Newcastle, I'll settle for that. You're not getting that either.
Jim, where we were with season tickets to where we are now, the reason I brought that up is exactly where I was going with it. I think we should look and view season ticket holders differently now. I think we should look at them as members of the football club. By the way, going back to another point you made, you said you're a Dunfermline fan. You were saying that fictitiously, not at me. For anyone who's tuning in and thinking that I support Dunfermline, Hibs or Queen's Park, I don't. I have been accused of supporting those three clubs. And Partick Thistle and Wraith Rovers, I've been accused of supporting those two. So I've got 7 teams, really, but Celtic are the best. I only support Celtic and Celtic reserves. But my point would be...
You have sympathies towards Dunfermline.
They're a local club with huge potential. I think that there's a huge potential up there. I think that if Lenny stays there for another season, he'll get them out that league. But they can't breathe, Jim. And clubs like that just can't breathe. Everything is, it's like get up or die, basically. And
I think we all have, sorry for butting in, I think we all have soft spots for other teams and we'd like them to do well. And that's the other thing about Scottish football. I would like all the teams to do well. I'd like competition. Playing Aberdeen next week. And I said, whenever it was, October, in that 2 weeks game, they're not very good. Falkirk gave us a harder game. She scored 7 there. But I want Aberdeen to do well. I want Hibs to do well. I want all the teams to do really well. I want them to form a challenge. I want them to have something. And I get the fact they don't have much money, but if you don't have much money, have something else. Have some sort of USP that people would... I mean, if you look at Atletico Bilbao, right, they only have Basque players. What if it's a Scottish team that only have Scottish players? And that's their USP. We only have Scottish players for the team. Young Scottish... Because if you think about the top two... How many Scottish players play for the top two on a regular basis who make the first team? Callum, regular. He's only when Tony comes on as a sub and James is a sub. But Callum's number, that's it. Over the road, Suter is the only one I can think of. I think the guy Barron gets a game down again. Suter and McGregor. So there's 2 Scots and the biggest 2 teams in the country. So there must be all these other Scottish players, young guys, experienced guys all there. Make that your USP. St Mirren, whoever, Motherwell, and say, you know what? See, from now on, we're going to encourage young Scottish talent. Only going to play young Scottish talent, a few experienced Scottish guys. Whether you can do that with employment law, I'm not very sure. But suddenly, St Mirren becomes your kind of second favourite team because they've got a kind of USP about them. They've got we're only going to play players under the age of 25 or something. Oh, that's quite good. Maybe so something that would make you appealing to fans. I think,
Well, I think you're right there. I'm going to come back to that because I've got a great example of it, Jim, and not in Scotland, unfortunately, but elsewhere. But with regards to being a season ticket holder, I think you need to be deemed a member of the football club. And that wee card, like you say, you can go to the superstore whenever and you get a discount. You can maybe once a year get a free tour because you're probably going to bring 3 or 4 of your mates or your family anyway. You're not going to go yourself. And things like that. For me, if you want...
I don't know, Paul. I mean, I'm not going to...
You can go with Kev Graham. You can
go with Kev. Thing. So, okay.
And, they're trying to promote the women's game. Right. Make that season ticket a dual season ticket. If you want to go and watch the women's game, you can scan that and get in as well. You can go and watch the B team. I don't know what's happening with them next season. But there's a whole package. Like my wife has got like a benefits package with her employer. And, money off here, money off there. I know we're not employed by Celtic Football Club, but I think that in terms of engagement, Jim, you're absolutely right. Yeah. You need to make that Celtic TV. What happens there? Maybe it's a discount. Maybe you get 1 month free. I don't know, but there's ways around it that you could definitely feel more valued as a punter.
So you're looking for a bit of imagination.
Yeah,
that's what you're looking for. Yeah. So it's kind of ask not what you can do for Celtic, but what Celtic can do for you, basically.
Even a wee thing, Jim. It's a tiny wee thing. Like every single year, the third jersey, right? Give us 4 prototypes. Let the season tickets decide. Let the fans decide. and everybody votes, and it's so easy and it's interactive. But whatever you vote for is because that's what the fans wanted, and that could be the third jersey every year. Talking of jerseys, and I'm not going to bore you here, right? But I was put onto a particular jersey, and it ties into a point that you've made in relation to a USP, something a wee bit different, right? So I'm going to bring it up, actually. I was put onto this by JP Mason, and I shall share it. I'm too old to wear football jerseys, right? I am. I'm too old. I'm going to look daft if I'm bouncing about with football jerseys. But the beauty of having an 8-year-old kid, Jim, is you can buy these things that you actually think's pretty smart yourself. I don't mean the Guinness. A few years maybe down the line. But basically, this is a football club called Bohemian FC. Now, Bohemian FC, they play out at Dallymount Park, which is a 4,500 capacity stadium. They're fan-owned. You might have seen their chief operating officer in the news because he's also the manager of Kneecap. Very vocal. And look at the jerseys that they produce. And I'm going to bring this one up because this is the one that JP put me onto, right? So not only is it sponsored by the brilliant Fontaines DC, who are Celtic fans, incidentally, the money, 30% of profits from this jersey go directly to medical aid for Palestine. And there's this wee emblem down the bottom here, this wee emblem here that you can see. Look at that. Now, Celtic will never do this. Celtic will never do it, but it's an example of you kind of breaking boundaries, Jim, in creativity, even just with your football jerseys and doing things that for some reason, some guy in Scotland thinks, wow, that's interesting. I'll buy that for the wee guy's holiday, which I did this week, simply because it's creative. You're breaking boundaries and you're doing things a wee bit different and you're creating your own USP. I think a few years ago, a lot of us loved this whole St. Pauli movement. We got into the approach with regards to they said no to homophobia, they said no to racism, and there was a whole ultra movement, and it was very, very influential. I understand that there are fan groups who have fallen out over the current situation in Gaza, but in terms of gathering an interest, Jim, from out of nowhere, this German football club, second tier, and all these Scottish fans and other fans of other clubs as well. I've been in the Jolly Roger. There are scarves and pennants from clubs all over the world who have gone over and been attracted to something that wee bit different. Now, I know it can't be as hardcore as that. It can't be as punk as that. But we can't be conservative with a small c. Some might argue with that. We can't be as conservative as we are at the moment, Jim, when it comes to how we actually deal and engage with our fan base. So a brilliant rant, fantastic. Looking forward to part 2 in the second half. Did you get a chance to watch the game the other night, the 5-1 game?
Yeah, I think just before finishing that, I talked about some imagination. The board haven't changed for a long, long time. We have people on the board who have been there for too long. Not because that's an opinion. I mean, they really shouldn't be there for that long. Most companies don't have boards there for that long. So we're still stuck in the same thinking that we've had for a number of years. So unless that changes, it becomes difficult. So, yes, saw the game the other night. I mean, I'm kind of not a big fan of meaningless games, which it was for us, but actually it was quite a good tempo and a good speed, a lot of good football. I'd have liked to see more younger players playing. I said that in the sort of group chat before the Hibs game, when I saw the Hibs team to play Hibs, I just thought, when are we ever going to give these younger guys a chance? Because we talk about, during the season, we say, well, you know what, once the league wrapped up, in the last few games, throw the youngsters in, and then the manager says, well, we're trying to break a record. I think, who cares about records? It's all about giving these young guys a game. So I'd like to have seen in the Hibs game 2 or 3 younger players coming in. It was good to see the young guy, Ricardo coming in. Looked really good, looked really confident, and assured. Just a good performance. And I think Aberdeen are as bad as they were at the start of the season. The only thing that's different is they were winning games at the start of the season. And I think we'll slaughter them next Saturday, and it could be as many as we want it to be.
That's really interesting because I'm so focused on Celtic, Jim, and often I have to watch the games twice just so that I know what I'm going to be talking about come Monday morning. So I don't often watch, full-length games involving any of the other teams in Scotland. It's just it's a time constraint. But the weekend there, obviously Aberdeen were playing Rangers, and I thought I'm going to watch some of this just to see the cup final opponents actually. And I watched the first half and I thought Aberdeen were dreadful. I thought they were absolutely dreadful. And then, of course, we go and play them up at Pittodrie, and over the 90 minutes, I would say the same. I know anything can happen in a one-off game. It can be a disaster for us, etc. But I think Celtic should be very confident going into that game. I'm glad you mentioned Sean McArdle. Second appearance of the season, Jim. 17 minutes on the park. I've liked what I've seen, and why not? You know, he needs to be in and around the squad against St Mirren tomorrow. He needs to be in and around the Scottish Cup final squad. You imagine the experience of being part of that day for a kid like young Sean. And the thing with him as well, the Rio Hatate injury, I would say rubber stamps his involvement in the next couple of weeks. I would hope, Jim. I would absolutely hope that's the case. But here's the thing, right? And I'm just going to run with this here. So there is a point to this, and I'll get round to the point. So this week, I've been interested to see that Napoli, top of Serie A, there's 2 games left in the Italian domestic calendar. Napoli might win that league. And of course, as we know, Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmour, massive part of that success as well. Bologna win the Coppa Italia, captained by Lewis Ferguson, a player who, by the way, when he was at Aberdeen, I wanted to buy him. And it's on the bulletins a number of times. I said, buy the kid. Sick of him scoring against us. We didn't. He went over to Italy. I'm going to say here, Jim, right? This summer, if Lennon Miller moves from Motherwell, and it looks like he is, he's given the big farewell at Fir Park, he should go to Italy, right? Now, there's maybe Celtic fans in the comment section going, wow, we should be signing the best of Scottish talent. Right. If we sign him, what chance does McArdle have? Surely we should be looking to make our own Lennon Miller, develop our own Lennon Miller. Is that Sean McArdle? I don't know. I've not seen enough of him. I've only seen 17 minutes of him. But we never will if we sign Lennon Miller, Jim. We'll never see the minutes that we need from a young guy like that next season. So I think Lennon Miller, brilliant talent. I really do. I think he's excellent. Away to Italy, become a brilliant success like the 3 I've just mentioned. Sean McArdle, let's focus on this guy's development instead.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because we have to win every single game we play, and we've got a massive squad. So how do you get game time? Yeah, the McTominay and the Gilmour and the Ferguson. If you had John McGinty, I'm a big Scotland fan. Fantastic midfield we've got. The rest of the team's rubbish, but we've got this great midfield. Apart from Kieran Tierney, maybe Robertson, but need a goalkeeper and a striker. Anyway, notwithstanding that, yeah, I think again, I mentioned the fact earlier it's a short career, although he's a young guy. Scottish players seem to be flavour of the month over in Italy, and they've been successful. So one would imagine there is a bit of interest in Lennon Miller. And from a personal development point of view, the chance to play in Italy, the chance to go and live in Italy, learn a new language, stay in a different culture. If I'm Lennon Miller, that's what I do. You know, whether you're a Celtic fan or not, to be given that opportunity to go to one of the bigger teams, hopefully over there, and you have to look at, again, playing devil's advocate in some of the stuff. If you're Lennon Miller's parents, that's what I would advise him to do if a big Italian club comes in, because I think he would struggle to get into that Celtic midfield. You know, if Hatate's there next season, and Engels is still there next season, which he should be, and Callum's there next season, where do you fit Lennon Miller in? To that. And if you're going to sign Lennon Miller, one assumes it's going to be a lot of money, and you're into that same scenario about Engels. It's the price tag, as Jesse J would say. Big price tag on Lennon Miller. You need to play him then, so he gets ahead of Luke McCowan. Say, but you know, is that fair, Luke McCowan? So I just think it's a very congested part of the team at Celtic Park just now, and that's why I get back. With 4 meaningless games this season, we should be giving the young guy 90 minutes 2 or 3 times. And what's the lad? Judd? What's the other?
Bonner.
Jude Bonner. There's a guy who's got a game as well. This is the time to play them. And that's what depressed me the other day when I heard something like that. I mean, you know, the manager's done great, and I'm not saying anything bad against the manager, but when he says things like, well, we're going to try and beat this record, who cares? Play the young lad Bonner, play the young lad McArdle. That's not got upset the team that much, surely. Surely that's so. Let's see. And that's what I was going to the game last week, and when I saw the team, and I thought that's the strongest team we could play. And not that I was disappointed to think, well, we're going to win the game today. I was looking forward to the game to see something different, because Leeds won. You know, so do something different. Let's see these young guys. Let's see what they're like. And I thought the young guy was outstanding the other night. He wanted to win the ball. The wee flicks and tricks he was doing, show me whatever. I think he's a player. Let's see him for 90 minutes. You can't tell 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And this wee series of games, That was the opportunity. And talking about, fine-tuning players for the cup final, plays Hatate gets injured.
I know.
So there's ups and downs of that. But for me, all during the season, you say playing too many games. Well, here's a chance to rest up before the cup final. Give them 20 minutes tomorrow. Some of that, just to kind of, and they're at training, and training is high intensity as well. So you get high intensity training. Give them 20 minutes on the last day of the season. But those games, Ibrox as well. Ibrox, Hibs, Aberdeen, St Mirren. 2 or 3 young guys in the team. Let's see what they're like. And for all we know, they have a fantastic performance, and that pushes them up the sort of the food chain, and they've got maybe a chance of maybe starting next season. I was disappointed that we didn't have that, level of numbers of kids playing the last few games.
I know you want to unearth a diamond, a gem, and it's the only way to doing it, Jim, is give them games, give them game time. I remember when I was doing my research for the Quality Street Gang, but talking to some of the peripheral figures, and Jockstein would say to them, right, you're going to get 3 games, don't worry about it, maybe even in Drybrook Cup, Jim, I'm going to give you starts, and don't worry if you don't play well in the first one, because I'm not going to drop you. And it just gave them a wee bit of time to breathe in the first team. Don't try anything too daft. Don't try and impress too much. Just play your own game and let it come naturally. So I agree with that. And, I know that's going to divide opinion, but I would focus on talent we've got at the football club rather than bringing in another midfield player in a congested area, like you say, because not only do we have the first 3 choices, you've got Bernardo, you've got McKeown, you've got Ricardo coming through, you've also got Odenholm out on loan. We've got a lot of midfield players. We've got Kwon out on loan. I don't even regard him as having a future at Celtic, but there are players in that area that I just think it's already a bit busy. Why bring in another?
I think you always want to get better. And if we want to do something in the Champions League, by do something, qualify for the sort of knockout stages, we need better than we have, basically. But if you're going to buy better than we have, it has to be the finished article for me, and I think that, and that might cost a lot of money. I just think it's kind of hard because you want to give youth a chance, but we have to win all these games. And the young lad Ricardo's not going to make a difference in the Champions League. So we need something better for that. And I think we could, in any football team, you're looking to replace every single player you've got with somebody better, even though you think what we've got is good. Big, other like Rocky, he was great. Every game I've seen Big Rocky, he's okay. Laga Bielka, I thought was okay. But for some reason, the manager doesn't fancy him. And neither the two of them have a kind of run in the team.
No.
So you never really see what they're like until they have that run in the team. Again, maybe he's the guy that should have played at Ibrox.
My take now on Nawrocki, having seen these 3 games this season, is if CCV stays, and I hope he does, because he is the rock at the back, for me, Mike Nawrocki's his backup. He's his backup. And you give, through a season, you give CCV breaks, you manage his fitness, you manage his issues with his knees and his ankles, and you give Mike Nawrocki game time. And games, Jim, sometimes they are going to be pivotal games. Just that's the nature of Celtic, going for 3 domestic trophies every year. But in a lot of the other games, rest Carter Vickers, bring in Mike Nawrocki. I trust him. I think he's fine. I don't think he's made any howlers. I know that the Aberdeen goal the other night was a poor goal to lose defensively. You could drag Tony Ralston into the conversation, Nawrocki, Trusty. But Schlupp, for me, was the main culprit in all of that. He was weak. He showed no desire to get the ball. It's not the first time. He was similar against Rangers with Raskin beating him in the air. So I can't even blame Nawrocki for the goal. I thought he had a pretty convincing game. Jim, it sounds like you've got F1.
Now, hold on. I shall shut the windows. Hold on.
Zooming past Jim Orr's window there. I don't know if anybody else has been affected by that, but there you go. Sorry, Jim. Sorry for affecting your domestic bliss. There is only 12 minutes to go. Apologies, Jim.
All the windows are open, now they're all shut. So what can I do?
Sorry, apologies. AGSC technology, here, bin Sky, totally. A lot of people agreeing with you on that one. Flinney says, if Amazon pays the same or more, it's a no-brainer. It's all about accessibility, isn't it? And Des says, all your other sponsorship deals are based on exposure on Sky. Celtic TV would never compete.
Not after Celtic TV, we're after Amazon, we're after our own SPFL deal. Show some imagination, just do something different. I mean, Sky don't care. The fact that Chris Boyd is on every Celtic game, again, they don't care. Why should they bother? The fact that
don't.
you get the usual suspects on it, they don't mix it up. There's hundreds of ex-footballers out there they could get for sort of different games. But it's the same people. It's the same tired old, before the match. It's just tired. It's just rubbish. We need innovation, imagination. It's all the stuff I was talking about earlier. So it's not Celtic TV. It's just let's I think back in the day, Roger Mitchell tried to pull something together, sort of kind of whatever it was called at the time, Scottish Premiership TV or something like that. Get the clubs together. Let's go for a bit. Because I mean, again, you go back to kick-off times and whatever. The fact that these 12 o'clock in Inverness on a Sunday and stuff. It's just they don't care. Really don't care about the fans. And it's the fans that keep football going. As I said, it's the people who pay their money, buy their season tickets. They're the men, women and children who keep football going. So you have to listen to them and try and do something for them for a change. And it's all take.
The point that was made there, yes, the coverage on Sky will be one of many of the bullet points that Celtic use when they're negotiating a sponsorship deal. Absolutely. But what's to say that there can't be a similar level of coverage elsewhere on a different platform? Now, I know Sky is huge, but like a lot of these mainstream channels and broadcasters, etc., they have seen figures dwindling with other platforms coming on board. People have obviously cottoned onto the fact that you might end up with half a dozen different subscriptions just to watch Celtic during a season, Jim. And so I think something dedicated to the league would work. I think Roger was maybe a wee bit ahead of his time, actually, with that notion. And a lot of people didn't buy into it. Did it come down to Celtic and Rangers in the end?
I forget what happened. But basically, I've got Sky because they show Celtic away games. That's it. If it didn't show Celtic away games, I'd bin Sky tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of Celtic fans are in the same boat. So, they would lose a lot of customers straight away. It's just this lack of imagination. And again, I think in a lot of things in life, I suppose you think, what could you do? Rather than blaming and pointing. And when I say, what could I do? What could my club do? What could, as I said, Michael Nicholson, if he still exists, what could he do? What could he do?
You're going to get put in a naughty step by the club just in a moment, Jim.
You'll
swipe your card tomorrow at the turnstile and it'll just be the big red light.
I'll get a shock. Shall we keel over? That's that. It's a question I'm asking. It's an observation I'm making. I'm not, I'm saying, what is it you're doing for the betterment of Scottish football? It's a great point. I think it's a reasonable question to ask. And that's the same question. I mean, I don't know who's in charge of Ibrox because it's musical chairs over there, but that's the same question of Anne Budge at Hearts, if she's still there. I think she is still there. Or St Mirren chairman. Ask all the clubs, what are you doing for the betterment of Scottish football? You're getting together to try and have a better deal for the fans. I said earlier, we play each other 4 times a season. That's a complete and utter nonsense. Mm-hmm. Complete and utter nonsense. So stop doing that. They're charging people £40 to go and watch a football match. That's a nonsense. Stop doing that. All the fans are putting banners up now, 20 is plenty, or whatever that message was. So we're all making the points, but they're getting rubber-eared, they're getting ignored because basically they're not interested.
There is a movement.
Isn't therefore.
There's a movement, like you say, and the ultras are right behind it as well, and they're all doing it in tandem, if you like. And the thing is, that's your life's blood of the game. That's who invests more than anybody else in the game. And, you hear about fan surveys, for example, Jim, and then nothing happens. So everybody feeds all their information into a fan survey. And I think we're 10 or 11 months down the line. No response, no outcome, no feedback, no communication whatsoever. So the point you're making there about the mute kind of approach of Celtic when it comes to fan engagement, I think also this week is prevalent because of the title celebrations. Love them or loathe them, the club haven't come out and said anything about it. Yeah. They've said nothing. Yeah. And I took umbrage to the wording of the Glasgow City Council statement where they were talking about, this kind of behaviour robs the public purse, Jim. I thought that was horrific. A horrific choice of language. A misuse of the public purse. Let's blame football fans for this. Well, there's been a few misuses of the public purse that I was looking at just before we came on here. I mentioned one yesterday. Here's another one that you might be familiar with. And it's the malicious prosecution scandal. The bill at the moment, as of the 31st of January, was £53 million. Is that a good use of the public's money? Probably not. I'm sure you'll agree. And the other one, Jim, there was one other that I was going to use. I just read this morning, not Glasgow Council, but Council. And this is an interesting one as well. There's a council employee who stole £1 million, embezzled it. Was that a good use? Only got 104 back. Is that a good use of the public funds? Absolutely not. I think it's shocking, Jim, that the football fan is always a target. You expect your club, our club, to stand up for football fans, and they remain silent.
Is it too late for a rant?
No, we're still at 5 minutes. We could have a wee mini rant, 5 minutes. Or we could run over. That's fine.
I think anyone who's worked for an organisation who's had to make a decision is familiar with the two words risk assessment. Right? So before you make a decision, what are the risks? If this all goes pear-shaped, what's the worst case scenario? Can you cope with that? Yeah, we can cope with that. Go ahead and do it. Somebody in Glasgow City Council was sat down and said, what are the risks? Now, this could have been done back in August. What are the risks? And I know that they gave the permission for the walk 2 months ago, but you could have asked anyone last August to say, even if they applied last August, they would like to have a march tomorrow, this Saturday. And somebody would say, well, you know what? That's the last day of the football season. And you know what? Either the two big teams in Glasgow, one of them is going to win the league and they're going to be having a title party and the police are going to be stretched. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a bit of a risk there. Do you want to go ahead? No, we better not, because there's a risk that might happen. Put the walk on the Sunday then. Fine, that's a good idea. So that's what risk assessment's about. So somebody 2 months ago either doesn't have that information, which is incompetent, or has that information and decided, we'll just go ahead. That's an acceptable risk to take, somebody thought. If, God forbid, something happens bad tomorrow and somebody gets injured or worse because of that situation, that's their fault. Yeah. That's their fault for letting that happen on the same day and stretching police resources to the nth degree. So that's unacceptable. And I know I'd heard you say maybe it's a bit more sinister than that. But for me, what's the rules? You do your risk assessment. There's a risk here. You're not blaming fans. You're not blaming the walk. You're saying, it's a risky situation, guys. We can either go ahead with the risks or we pull back on it and we took the walk a different day. Inconvenience them a wee bit, but that's the less risk. Somebody or some people decided, let's just take the risk. So they're taking the risk, basically. And that's the bit that annoys me. But from a title party point of view, I can see both sides of this thing. Because, if you take something like, if you're an organised event, you organise events, you do things at bars. If you'd organise a title party for tomorrow, you would sell tickets. People would come. It's an organised event. It's a safe space. You know who's coming to that. You can sell alcohol. You can do catering. You can put things on the big screen. You can do whatever you want because they're in that space there. And that works. Mm-hmm. But if you get a bunch of fans saying, let's all go to the Gallagate, and there's, 10,000, 15,000 people, and it's going to be boiling again tomorrow, and they'll be drinking in the street, which is against the law, technically, you know how this ends up. You know how, because we are, as a support, we're only as strong as our weakest link. The guy at Ibrox that did the thing with Ibrox disaster, right? He's a Celtic fan, right? Mm-hmm. Shocking, right? So we know that there'll be misbehaviour, there'll be antisocial behaviour tomorrow, and that will reflect poorly in Celtic. And that's just the way. So what could the club have done? Yeah, maybe to and I don't know what the club are doing. I don't know if they're talking to the police or they're talking to the city council, ever. But could we keep it within the confines of Celtic Park? Because I live quite close to the Queen's Park Recreation Ground, and maybe over the past decade or so, there's more concerts going on in there. Mm-hmm. These guys take 2 days, fence off the whole area, put the big tent up. It takes a couple of days for these guys to do that. Look at the kind of area around Celtic Park. The Celtic Ways for that big area.
Absolutely.
Dalmarnock Road. They shut Dalmarnock Road. The whole road is there. There's tons of space. We could fence around the kind of area. But when people go at the game, they've got the things there. They could sell tickets to non-match holders who could come along maybe an hour after the game. Whatever. Keep it within the confines. Invite local caterers, local publicans to set things up, entertainers, music, face painters. We always have to have a face painter and we don't pay them. Have that kind of whole thing there. That's my door. Hold on.
That's Michael Nicholson. I'll bring up some of these comments. Brilliant comment there from Jim, actually. I agree with all that. What a beautiful day in Hopeman Moray. All hail Jamesy Forrest's goal tomorrow, says Franny Weldon. I'm going to bring this one up here from Billy Hasty. Good morning, Paul John. Any plans for May the 24th at Bad? Thank you. Well, I'm going to share a wee screen with you again because I've been doing that a few times today. And this particular screen will show you the process of going to book a seat at Barra's Art and Design. So go on to badglasgow.com/book a table, and you can go on to the dates and you'll be able to book. There are some available, but I was told this morning that 330 have already booked. So be quick if you want to book a table for the Scottish Cup final. We're going to have, like Jim was saying there, we're going to have a safe space where we're going to have live music, free pies, the bar, the game on the big screen, a bit of the old Acsom input, and it'll be a great day. So yeah, anybody out there who's watching it and who's looking for somewhere to go, didn't get a ticket, come along and join us. This is the website you can book your table on. Jim, that was perfect timing. Perfect timing. So you're back.
Yeah, so I just think the club could, again, show some imagination and just we'll fence the area off, keep the superstore open, have merchandise stalls, just a bit of imagination for a wee change. And then, as I said, if maybe leave it to an hour after the game and then you let other people in who would have to have tickets then. So £5 a ticket, £2, nothing exceptional. We want to go into, and you keep it within the kind of confines of Celtic Park. So you don't inconvenience people, you don't annoy people, you don't do whatever. Because, anyway, that's what are the club doing? I don't know what they're doing. For all I know, they've had a look at that and thought it's too risky. They've done a risk assessment and they thought, it's a bit too risky. That we don't want to do that. Because once the fans leave Celtic Park, then Celtic's responsibility is finished. I've heard people say things like go to Glasgow Green. Well, you need to hire that. You can't. Who's going to hire that? Whose name's on the let? Then you can't just turn up at Glasgow Green. Well, you can't just turn up at Glasgow Green. But there's implications of doing that. So that have to be. So hire Glasgow Green, fence off Glasgow Green. And is that the GB do that or the boys do that or something? And it's an organised kind of thing. They want to put their names to that. What happens if there's some antisocial behaviour and that's the thing you've organised? In the same way that if something bad happens at Bad, you're hit for that. It's your event. So it's up to you to keep that under control. If you happen to keep 10,000 fans under control, the risks inherent in that become astronomical. So you're never going to do that. You're never going to. Jim was not going to hire the Glasgow Green for a day and charge a £5 to get in because the risks associated with that would be like astronomical. So I just think we should keep it within the confines of Celtic Park. And what could we do to actually do that? How would we make that work? I think I remember we were going to Muddyfield when we played. Who did we play at Muddyfield?
We played Warsaw, yeah.
What I was dead impressed by was when you go through the turnstiles, there's masses of space before you actually go into the. So whereas you go to Celtic Park, you walk upstairs, you're in. So there's no real space, even the concourses that are not that big. But we have that stamp around the ground. We have the Celtic Way. We have even the kind of car park. Maybe for one game, maybe you get the people to park their cars and buses somewhere else and use the car parks. Just a bit of imagination. That's all we are saying is a bit of imagination.
Well, I agree. I think Celtic Park is a perfect destination for it, Jim. And it's frustrating. There's a lot of comments coming through in relation to the fact that the club have simply just remained silent on it. If they're doing anything, we don't know about it, so you can only speculate. But great suggestion from you, Jim. Let me know if your season card lets you into the stadium tomorrow. I'm pretty sure you'll be on a naughty step after daring.
Also, here's a wee want to finish with. I've got a cup final ticket from the ballot. I'm going to a wedding next Saturday. So, disaster. But anyway, that's the way to finish the season.
Deary me.
So my nephew, who's a Celtic fan, whose kids are Celtic fans, who should know better, who's now been, ostracised from the family completely. So, again, he knew that well in advance. Risk assessment, he's failed at the park. So, hey-ho.
Well, that's unfortunate, Jim. But I hope you get a chance to keep an eye on the score some way or other. We'll be at
4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah.
What's that?
Celtic next week. 4, 5, 6, 7. Putting on the style. Yeah.
Yep. Listen, absolute pleasure to speak to you, Jim. I don't see it as rants. I think that there's so many good, pertinent points that are made, and I'm delighted to have you on the show again. Hopefully, we'll see you again in a fortnight. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved in the chat. Have a brilliant weekend. Make sure you put your sunscreen on as well if you're out in the back tonight and tomorrow. Stay safe, because as Jim says, something might happen. There is a risk there. Stay safe. Make sure that whoever you're with, you stay with them as well. And we'll be covering the game 30 minutes before kickoff, as always. Always looking forward to that. I'm in Glenrothes tonight with Chris Sutton and John Hartson. And there's an Acsom event at the end of the month. The ticket link is underneath this video. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you to Jim Orr for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.